But want to take a quick break here to tell you about our sponsor, Mythologic, as we are going to be going into game number 7, the absolute possible last game we could have, the ace match, as you would call it. But Mythologic here is going to be putting up a large prize. This is why these teams are fighting so hard. $700 for the Grandmaster division of SC2CTL. So they have their eye on the prize as they go through this match back and forth. Mythologic, a custom system builder for gaming laptops, and I think they're even doing desktops now, but we definitely suggest you check them out. Mythologic.com. Give them a follow on Twitter or Facebook. You can find them by just searching for Mythologic. Also, if you would be so kind, it really shows them how much you appreciate their support of esports and grassroots esports at this level, as it is quite a big step for a company to step out like that and put up that kind of money. Tweet at them on Twitter, and also tag myself, Wingnut SC, and even tag Feardragon 64, as he is my co-caster this evening, and let Mythologic know that you appreciate them standing behind a cool league like the StarCraft 2 Community Team League. They would appreciate that, and we would appreciate that as well. But also, the thing we need to let you know about is our giveaways. As I'm going to type that in chat again, give away. It's really hard to type and talk at the same time. If you go to sc2ctl.com/giveaway, Mythologic in I want to say cohorts, but cahoots with Corsair have put up some really awesome prizes this season. We gave one away last week, and we'll be giving another one away this week. And I am going to give you another code right now to get those entries. If you were not paying attention earlier, after game number 2, we gave away our first code, and I'm going to be really, really nice this evening and give it away again. That code was ice cream, because we want you to get those entries. So the first code this evening was ice cream, and the second code that I'm going to give away to you right now, in the sort of same vein, is waffles.
I love me some waffles, Wingnut.
So if you enter that code into sc2ctl.com/giveaway, you will get a single entry. But if you want additional entries, you can follow the items that are on that page on Twitter and also on Facebook. For every follow or like you give, you will get a whole single additional entry. So you can get a whole lot of entries if you follow and like all of those pages. And once you follow and like them, you will get those entries every single time you put in a new code. And we will continue to give those away. Our grand prize that will be given away during the live finals coming up here in really not all that long, as we're now in the playoff phase of SC2CTL starting this week, is going to be a Corsair mechanical keyboard, which looks pretty freaking sweet, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, guys, be sure to check those giveaways out. And again, I want to reiterate something that Wingnut said. Be sure to let these sponsors know that you really enjoy what they're doing, that you enjoy these giveaways, and you enjoy the fact that they're supporting and allowing stuff like the SC2CTL to come up. Because, guys, if you enjoy the show and you want to see more of Wingnut and SC2CTL, be sure to be letting those companies know that you want to see them keep supporting the SC2CTL. And, of course, it does not hurt also to enter yourself into chances to win more awesome free stuff.
And before we jump in to get the info on game number 7, I do want to give a huge shout out to Mr. Feardragon here for joining us this evening. We appreciate you so much in coming out to join me and cast these awesome games and help us out in that regard. So give Feardragon a follow. He is at Feardragon64. Tweet at him. Let him know that he's awesome for standing up for SC2CTL and coming out this evening and taking that personal time. We do appreciate that very much.
Yeah, guys, actually, and I want to say the reason why my lights are actually all off and everything, it's actually because I talked to my electric company. They said that they actually needed Mythologic to sponsor the SC2CTL so that they can get the generators running. So, guys, make sure that you're following Mythologic. Make sure that you're checking out all the sponsors for the SC2CTL. If you want me to have lights, that's what you're going to need to do. So please, that's the best way you can support me, is go ahead and check out those SC2CTL sponsors.
So go ahead and tweet at Mythologic, hashtag Feardragon needs lights.
Yes, please, please.
But getting to the real info that we're here for now, it is game number 7 with these awesome players. We will be seeing them again, as this is an ace match, so on the fly, each team can pick a player that has already played and throw them back out into the mix. So we will see who they chose, and the first one representing Team Ascension will be Lucky. Just a recap of his history here. He is a veteran of the Semi-Pro Series. He's been on teams such as Optic, Area 51, TQ, and Insanity, some very, very well-known teams. He's away for 9 months serving his country in the Air Force training program, and he is already back up to the top 16 of Grandmaster, so one of their best players for sure. And meeting him on the other end of Galaxy Viridian will be Virium, representing Root Seed. He started playing April of 2012. SC2 is his first RTS, but he improved it very quickly. He played in the WCS qualifiers, beating Yoline, QXC, and Desro, and he mostly plays on the EU servers.
And, I mean, we already got to see a little bit of Team Ascension's Lucky's PvP in his games earlier today against Bones, and honestly, his PvP was looking pretty awesome. I really liked what he did, especially with the whole Charge-Lot Archon style, but there's only one way to find out if he's going to be doing that every PvP or just that last one. Wingnut, take it away with the player introductions.
We will find that out here very shortly, as in the upper right-hand corner as we get into game number 7, this ace match representing Root Seed, the color blue, and Protoss. It is Virium.
And his opponent spawning down in the bottom left-hand corner as the orange Protoss player representing Team Ascension. It is going to be Lucky.
So this map also provided by our partnership with the Galaxy map making team. It is a really eye-pleasing map. If you go look at the entire screen grab on SC2CTL.com, it's a very colorful, very pretty map, but it is a very big map.
It really is. And I gotta ask you, Wingnut, what exactly is at stake here? I mean, we know that this is obviously the ace match, but what does it mean for these players? What is on the line for these two teams?
Well, both of these teams, Root Seed is guaranteed to be in the playoffs, so I mean, really what's on the line for them is the first round bye. The first two teams ranked in at the end of the regular season, which this game kind of represents, do get a bye through the first round of the playoffs, so that is kind of important, you know, if you don't want to go up against another team. I mean, honestly, every team you don't have to play is just another chance to get to that grand $700 prize, although I'm sure they would not be too afraid. But, you know, literally everything's on the line, including all the ice cream and all the waffles.
And everybody loves ice cream and waffles and Mythologic Gaming. But let's take a look at what these two players are actually doing so far right now. Looks like Virium going for the double gas opening, and same thing with Lucky. It's not a huge surprise. The big thing that you do want to pay attention to is how many guys in gas each player has, and that is actually something that we are seeing a bit of a difference in. Lucky sticking around with 2, which is almost the more old school Heart of the Swarm style, whereas I feel like Virium's going for the more new school, just you kind of put 3 guys in each gas like the entire time.
I mean, it is Protoss after all.
Yeah, I mean, Protoss players love their gas, man.
And it looks like Lucky actually has now, as we're looking at the income tab here, has added the extra 2 workers to his gas. It does make about a 40 or so gas per minute income difference, so it's not insignificant.
Yeah, certainly not. And again, Protoss players, they love their gas to get up those tech units. I mean, those tech buildings, they run on burritos, basically, Wingnut.
So it looks like it's going to be very clearly different choices here for both players. Lucky coming out with a Stalker, and Virium going to be going the Stargate route, most likely for a Oracle, although Phoenix is not out of the question at this point.
You know, I would really like to see an Oracle come out just because of how early, again, he's going for it. He got up the 3 guys in each gas. Guys were immediately, he planted down the Stargate. He then went for the 3rd pylon. It's just all of these things. You need to just try and get some nice damage done and make use of the fact that you're going for the Stargate as fast as possible.
The probe of Virium did make its way into Lucky's base, although he didn't make it very far as there was a Stalker there. There is the Twilight Council going down in the back, which he was hoping to scout out that tech, which he didn't see. So we'll see what comes out here. It looks like it's going to be Blink and an Oracle. So how do you think this, whose favor does this play into, Mr. Feardragon?
You know what? Honestly, if those of you who are obviously not as familiar with Galaxy Viridian, it is a big map. We can already see that. But let me relate it to a map that maybe some of you players may be more familiar with, which is Ultrazeme Stronghold. A really big map, and the really prevalent kind of unit composition that players go for on that map is the Stargate play. You get a lot of Phoenix up, because they're just so unbelievably hyper-mobile that you can just kind of decimate your opponent's worker line and do all kinds of crazy Stargate shenanigans with it, and your opponent just it has a really hard time dealing with it. So I feel like I kind of like Virium's tech choice a little bit better, but at the same time, Blink Stalker is generally considered a pretty good opening against the Stargate play.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of regardless of tech choice at this point, this Virium is Lucky is actually going to end up in the lead, as he was, it's almost like the spider sense type of thing. You think he kind of had a feeling what was coming down as he just parked those 2 Stalkers in his mineral line with his mothership core. So, does end up taking out that Oracle. Like, I'm going to get something, I swear.
Yeah, Oracle going to back off. Has 2 kills, but you know what? The important thing is that it has all of its actual health left. It's taken 1 point of damage on its actual hull. It's basically got a band-aid on and says, ow, that was a bit of a boo-boo. The mothership core is going to kiss that, and I will be okay in just a couple minutes. Go back in and do a little bit more damage. Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing, especially once you know that Oracle's there. It looks like actually Lucky might be able to actually get a couple pot shots on it here. But, I mean, as Lucky, you have to know that always exists until you kill it. And if you get a little bit too over-eager, now Blink is done. He's going to be starting to warp in more Stalkers here as his natural expansion finishes up. And also just like this, he's caught a little bit out of position here. Oh, he does have 3 Stalkers in his mineral line, but...
And with Blink finished up, he's going to be able to do some nice damage on this Oracle. The Oracle is actually a bit trapped right now, and it's going to go down.
I thought he was maybe going to find that sweet spot back there, but it looks like he did not. But so now, as we were saying, Lucky's in a little bit better position as he doesn't have to worry about that Oracle anymore.
Well, I'm not sure. Well, actually, he should have seen that. He had the Observer running past this hallucinated Oracle that Virium is now sending out. So he's had the opportunity to see if he was paying attention, and I'm sure he was. He sees, okay, it's a hallucinated Oracle. I don't need to freak out about this. Although it will be a little bit funny if he still pulls his probes away.
I mean, Oracles do put the fear of God in a lot of people, but it looks like he's going to try and take pot shots at it anyway. But he does have a Forge and Templar Archives coming down here, which that hallucinated Oracle did see. So that will reveal the tech choice here of Lucky, although it does not make him freak out necessarily as much as maybe his intention was.
Yeah, and the cool thing is about this is that we see Lucky going for that same sort of charge slot Archon style again, and we see the player from Root Seed Academy going for the Robo Bay, going up to Colossus. No Void Rays mixed in, kind of like how Bones had in the earlier PvP we saw this series, but it's going to be like very similar styles, but the map is very different, and we could see this go into a bit of a later game, depending on whether or not Lucky moves out.
There is an observer here of Lucky that has been scouting around Virium's base quite regularly, so everything that's going on there is no secret to Lucky. Virium did... Oh, it looks like he's actually going to maybe be able to get that down. One more shot does actually take out that observer, so... but Virium does have a pylon now here in a sort of odd position. It's not quite close enough to really put on a whole lot of aggression, but, you know, maybe hide something or do some really late... Zealot warp-ins down the road. I guess we'll just have to see. But
you know, I just like to see Protoss players have generally probably never ever be scouted pylons out on the map, because if you ever get put in a situation where you kind of get contained by a really scary force and you'd have to move out through a choke to actually move out, just having a pylon just allows you to put on some kind of pressure on your opponent, and it means so much.
It looks like he's sort of using that as a fallback pylon as he is putting down an aggressive pylon here at the what would be the opposite natural expansion-ish type area here, but there is a Phoenix that flew over and got taken out, so we did see that third base going down, and a third base for Virium is to follow as well. Is that an additional robo here coming out for Virium? So he's going to be definitely going full speed ahead down the Colossus path here.
Yeah, and honestly, I like it. I mean, if the thing is, if your opponent has like a Charge-Lot Archon style force, we kind of talked about it in that last PvP. Again, I keep bringing it up because it's important. Lucky's going to have a little bit of a window where he can do really well against his opponent's army. And if the army of Virium just gets a little bit too crazy in terms of the Colossus count, and of course, you know, his upgrades and everything else just gets a bit too far into the late game, the Charge-Lot Archon force is just not quite as effective. So why not get into that mode as soon as possible? Why delay it?
Absolutely, but it also seems like both players are, you know, kind of holding to their own, not really getting too far out of their comfort zone. Both are scouting each other out pretty regularly. Virium choosing to use Hallucinated Phoenix, and Lucky keeping a number of observers just kind of floating around as he is now coming back into the main base of Virium. He is going to see all of the tech things there, lots of gateways and those robos, as well as upgrades coming down. I mean, we saw in the last game too, upgrades were a huge advantage where +2 versus plus nothing definitely comes out, but both players staying pretty even in there. Actually, they could not really be that much more even.
Yeah, but War Prism is actually coming out now for Lucky, and oh, look at this probe from Virium. The probe from Virium is actually at that Zelmaga watchtower. That's actually something really, really crazy. You wouldn't expect that to be there, but War Prism gets scouted out, and now Virium has the time to react. He has his entire army positioned at the 3rd expansion, ready to intercept this War Prism.
And that never-to-be-scouted pylon did actually get scouted by that Warp Prism as well. Sad to say.
Go figure.
But warps in 4 Zealots, loads them up. Looks like he's going to be getting ready to drop them on out. But, I mean, you know, Virium is definitely ready. I think these 5 Colossus can handle this drop.
Yeah, they're going to stop units that actually get dropped out. The War Prism should be able to actually escape out of there, or actually go into the main base, it looks like, or even the natural expansion. I mean, there's not really a whole lot there to defend. There's 2 Archons to get the natural, and the Motion Core does have enough energy for a Photon Overcharge, but Photon Overcharge kills stuff rather slowly, so I still feel like there's a potential for Lucky to maybe do a little bit of damage here.
So I really like the reaction here from Lucky. I mean, as both players are staying sort of passive, he's putting down double Stargate, and I expect we'll see a Fleet Beacon here before too long and start going towards Tempest to deal with a large number of Colossus. I mean, he's seen the number of Colossus that Virium has on the field, so the current tech that he has, Immortal, Stalker, Archon, is not going to be able to deal with that. So I like where he's going, but it's going to take a while to get there.
And the whole, you know, the thing is, Immortals actually do pretty damn well against Colossus as long as they get into like really big numbers, and you manage to get them like relatively decently split up, or you have things like Charge Zealots or Archons to soak up the damage. So I honestly think he's just going to be unbelievably well prepared once he gets some of those Tempests out. But Virium looks like he wants to put on a little bit of pressure. Does he actually have a Gateway army to substantiate this Colossus force, though?
I feel like this push is going to turn out kind of even. Looking at, I mean, we got the big Colossus force out of Virium and the huge Immortal force out of Lucky.
This clip is actually going to be really, really weird, because this army is going to want to go through this choke to try and deal with these Colossus that are putting a harassment, but they can't really do it. So now the Tempests are going to be revealed, though, and that is actually going to be able to trigger a really big reaction over here. I think that Lucky maybe feels like he can push back this force at this point. I mean, the Tempests are going to go uncontested. And
there are a 3 Stalkers at the 3rd base of Virium as well that are pretty much free range here, getting quite a few probe kills. Now just some Zealots being warped in as Virium was distracted with his attack there onto Lucky, but even Blink now behind these cannon is going to end up taking it out, trapping them between the Zealots and the cannons. But I mean, that was a decent number of kills he got there. It's 14-3 as far as probe kills in favor of Lucky.
Yeah, and we saw Lucky again. He has that really nice kind of Stalker control and moving them around and being annoying with them. Continuing to do it in this game, even in the very, very late stages of the game, where basically both players are around 10 to 20 supply away from being maxed out.
So now Lucky does have 4 Tempests up. Once these last 2 come out, he will be able to one-shot those Colossus, which is the big key number you're looking for. So now with that and these Immortals and the Zealots, it seems like Lucky is starting to move into the position of having the upper hand here. What do you think?
Well, I like the fact that Virium is going for Stargates of his own. He's getting get up a Fleet Beacon, but I mean, what does it really make at this point? Void Rays, I suppose, to try and deal with his opponent's Tempests and the Immortals and Archons and everything?
Honestly, I feel like carriers. But maybe that's just the classic Protoss in me.
Well, here's the thing I don't like about carriers is that they will also take a massive amount of damage because they are massive units from the Tempest.
Right.
So I feel like they sort of just add targets for the Tempest to go after.
It's honestly, that's the tough bit of PvP once you get into this late game. I mean, we're just approaching 20 minutes here, so I definitely wouldn't call this a late game, but neither player is looking like they really want to commit to a huge full-scale attack at this point. Is that, you know, you're filling your supply with certain numbers of units, and now, you know, Lucky has and Tempests, we'll say, and Virium has chosen Colossus and Archons. And until you have a big engagement, you really can't really make a big switch into something else. So what are they going to be gearing up to do here? It looks like Virium is going to be going for his air upgrades and Tempest as well. 3 at a time.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And
Void Rays.
Interesting. Kind of interesting, actually. Fury able to force out a recall on Lucky's entire army back to the main base just because of 4 Zealots. And, you know, War Prism continued to be annoying, but it finally does get taken out. And here's kind of like this weird thing. There's a damn lot of Immortals. There's around like 13, I think 13 or 14 Immortals. And Lucky just has this like amazingly solid army, and he has a lot of Warp Gates to back this up. So even after this army kind of gets taken out, he's going to be able to warp in a ton of reinforcements. I think Virium is trying to catch up to that point. He's trying to catch up with the +3 weapons upgrades and, of course, the air upgrades and everything. So honestly...
Lucky's actually trying to go for Colossus himself now, which is interesting. He's got another Robo coming down as well as the robotics facility there.
I think it's I'm maxed out at this point. I need to make sure I have the option to go for the Colossus and start reproducing them once my army kind of dies out.
Both players have +3 attack for their ground units and +1/+1. Now the Tempest is going to start dealing the damage out. One Tempest of Virium does go down, so Lucky really starting to put the pressure on here. He doesn't really have any Observer to get the extra range on those Tempests, though.
Yeah, and he'd have to be careful with them anyways, considering the cannons are going to be causing a little bit of trouble for that. But, I mean... Lucky's able to snipe off of these Tempests one by one as they start to come in, but oh, hold that thought. The big engage is going to happen. A really solid time warp coming down from Virium, stopping most of those Immortals from really getting involved in this engagement. But I mean, where's the answer to this massive Tempest fleet from Lucky? All of the Colossus get taken out for Virium.
Yeah, I definitely don't think this is... I think this is going to end pretty cleanly here, because there are these Void Rays here as well, but they're falling as the Tempests go. There are still 2 Tempests left for Virium here, so I mean, this is going to be interesting. He is warping in another round of Zealots, which are going to do quite a bit of damage to the leftover Immortals here. So I mean, where do we go from here? This is, I think Virium's going to end up maybe losing a base here with these Immortals just purely doing a lot of damage to that Nexus, but definitely not going to be game ending here.
Well, we see High Templar is being warped in for Lucky, so it looks like he actually just might be going for the Jugular and trying to see how much damage he can do. He's going to be retreating with the Immortals, since those are obviously the units that take a lot longer to replace. But the Zealots go after that 3rd expansion now, killing off as many probes as they can muster to kill. And honestly, right now, Wingnut, Tempest just showing that they just don't do very much damage to Zealots.
No, I mean, they can take out Colossus in one shot, but darn it, it takes half a year for 4 Tempests to take out 6 Zealots. But now it looks like Lucky's going to be going back for a lot of Archons. I mean, now he's got, if I can do the click, 9 on the field and more in production. It's kind of just the more pure Zealot Archon force. Whereas Virium is going to be resupplying with Colossus and Tempest.
And I think that's the thing. Right now, Lucky kind of knows that his opponent is sort of bottlenecked into, oh man, I just got to make more Tempest and Colossus because that's what my infrastructure is supporting right now. And guess what? Those units don't do very well in small numbers. They need to get into that maxed out situation to really do well. So Lucky gets another cancel off on that 4th expansion. It's going to continue to take out some of those gas guys, just make it a little bit more annoying to try and retake that. But these Archons are just going to do so damn well in this engagement again. I
don't think he wants to get himself up here pinned too much in that back there, because there are a lot of Tempests here, but he is trying to get right underneath them, coming in those Tempests, targeting down the Archons there, but the Zealots stuck in a time warp of doom do finally make their way up to the Colossus, but now the Colossus is starting to whack away at those Tempests, but the Tempests are just kind of knocking it down here for Virium.
Yeah, and those Colossus with a +3 weapon upgrade just massacred those Zealots. I think that Lucky was really depending on them, but no, look at this. The Immortals managed to do some nice damage, take out 1 or 2 of those Colossus. A single Colossus left over at the end of the fight. Wasn't really worth it, though.
I feel like this is the point in PvP where both players are like, okay, what next? Void Rays, says Lucky. I think Void Rays will be good. And honestly, I kind of feel like at this point, getting like 4 or 5 Void Rays and a Mothership Core to just go around and to, you know, so the engagement happens on the left side of the map here. Send 4 or 5 Void Rays to the right side and just knock off some tech structures and either just sack them or recall.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. But at the same time, I mean, 4 or 5 Void Rays, that is actually quite a bit of your army. And you have to wonder, like, if you, in PvP, oftentimes if you lose the engagement, like handily. I mean, we haven't seen it really happen in this series, or this game, I should say. But if you do lose the engagement handily, you can end up just losing the game outright from there because your opponent just continues to push and kills you. So it's a bit of it's a risk-reward situation. You could kill off and snipe off an expansion and just recall out. But would you lose the entire engagement and thereby lose the game from that point?
Yeah, it's definitely this phase of the game is very
Tense.
risky, you know, and it's harder to scout too because all the bases have more cannons around them, so you can't really. Actually, this is kind of hilarious that these units are whacking away at these high ground rocks here.
2 zealots managed to sneak by for Lucky, going after that 3rd expansion. And here's actually the big thing that I think that the reason why I think Lucky is in a good situation. It's kind of obvious logic. It's just Lucky kind of has his 4th expansion up in mining, whereas Virium is trying to get his his 5th expansion up in mining, whereas Virium's just trying to reestablish that 4th expansion. So the thing is, if Lucky can just continue to deny that 4th expansion, he's just gonna have a better economy. Eventually, he just continues to reproduce the units, whereas Virium cannot.
I mean, looking at the worker count, it's 62 to 46. So Virium losing the 32 workers he's lost so far hasn't really replenished them either. You know, so the income is quite, I mean, almost double for Lucky right now. 1,600 minerals to 600 and 900 gas to almost 550, 600. So Lucky mining a lot more.
Yeah, I think it definitely goes to show just how many more bases Lucky has. At the same time, I don't really think that having more workers would benefit Virium at this point, just because, in reality, he is mined out of his main base and his natural expansion. He's basically relying on 2 base economy at this point, which it's kind of rough, and it's showing. He's really only able to produce like 2 Colossus at a time, and then he'll make a warp-in round of, you know, some sort of High Templars or Zealots.
Nice little run around of 3 Zealots by Lucky in the main base of Virium. Almost catches a Colossus completely off guard, taking down the shields before it maneuvers itself behind a few Zealots of its own. But I also like how Lucky's kind of trying to maintain some presence over here, kind of keeping an eye on the future bases of Virium. He has a Zealot on the left side, and he had a Zealot on the a Zealot on the right side, and he had a Zealot on the left side as well, but that subsequently was taken out a few minutes ago. But he has gotten this 4th base back up in mining. He is fully saturated on it, and I mean, that gas at this point in the game, I mean, gas is like your primary resource, so you need the more bases for the more gas.
But, you know, a lot of Lucky's gas going into those Void Rays that he has been doing a pretty good job, honestly, of keeping relatively hidden. I'm not sure, maybe there's like been a hallucinated Phoenix or like Oracle or something that's come out. Well, actually, no, that's probably not been the case since there are no sentries out on the map for either of these players. But I honestly think like that these Void Rays could really be a big game changer for Lucky if Virium is not prepared for them. I
think we'd both agree now that Lucky has a bit of the upper hand right now, and you know how the saying goes, Feardragon, that when behind,
get more ahead.
Or Dark Shrine, as Virium does have a Dark Shrine going down at his natural expansion, maybe hoping to get a little bit of pokey damage done. You know, Lucky hasn't really been the best about setting up cannons at his bases. His base on the right side here now just having some cannons going up. He is fairly well defended on the left side of his 4th there. But now Virium sending in some Zealot runarounds too. Oh, and actually does not get a cancel for Lucky on that Nexus.
Ooh, a little bit annoying. But, you know, right now, Lucky does still have a decent economy kind of going. You know, his third expansion is kind of running a little bit dry, but his 4th and 5th expansions are still running strong. So he should be able to replenish that without too much of an issue. I'm honestly just wondering, what exactly do you think Lucky's waiting for at this point? Do you think these final 2 Void Rays are going to be like the big point where he says, okay, I have my big Doomsday army, it's time to move out?
I'm not sure, actually. He seems kind of like he's covering his bases and being kind of defensive. He does have a decent portion of his army over here on the right side. It looks like 6 Archons and 2 Immortals kind of defending these runarounds a little bit, as there are more Zealots from Virium going in every which way. He did clear out a natural base here and now whacking away at the Nexus. So, I mean, Virium doing a good job of trying to keep himself in a relatively decent position by just putting a little bit of pressure here and there on Lucky to kind of hold him back. And, you know, over time that is going to give Virium an advantage, as he does have an equal number of bases up now.
Yeah. Now, Lucky sending a lot of these charge zealots across the map. Honestly, these are not the kind of units that you really want to have a massive number of in those big late game engagements. So you might as well try and get just a little bit of harassment damage done, which honestly is a pretty similar line of thought of what Virium was thinking with his zealot weapons. But at the end of the day, these two players, they're basically going to be maxed out once again. So this engagement could go either way.
I mean, if we just look at the upgrades, Lucky does have a slight upgrade advantage in that he has one more air attack and one more shield. So in a 200-200 army, that does stack up quite a bit in his favor. These zealots still kind of running around here on the right side, keeping an eye on this base. These chokes on the sides are actually kind of really awkward for units like Colossus to try and engage through. At
the same time, I don't think the zealots really want to engage the Colossus through that choke.
I don't think anything wants to engage this Colossus through that choke.
Yeah,
but
maybe like if you're a Tempest or something, you're like, oh yeah, this choke is working out great.
So while we have some time here, I mean, what in your mind would be the best move for both of these players? What could Lucky do to get himself the win? And what? Oh, actually, there's a zealot, quite a large zealot force in the main base of Virium as we're going into that, which is going to pull Virium completely back to kill those off, killing quite a few gateways.
Love that you actually asked that question, Wingnut, while this was happening, because this is actually something that I would like to have seen him done. Do these kind of big zealot weapons, because zealots, honestly, they're not like the big part of your army, and move in with your army along the left-hand side of the map, kill off one of these expansions, and just delay your opponent from really having the big remax out economy. Because you look at it, Lucky has a 2k or 1.5k gas bank now, replenishing that supply with High Templars and Void Rays. Whereas you kind of see Virium, he's sitting around like 400-ish, and he's still trying to like remax out, get a couple of those final upgrades out. And I feel like that is the kind of way that if Lucky's gonna play this patient style, play it to the max and really secure those big economic and big gas bank advantages.
To be honest here for Lucky, I think I really like this army of Void Rays that he has, because they're not massive units, so the Tempests aren't going to do a huge amount of damage, but now it's actually attacking on multiple angles here. Void Rays coming in, targeting down those Archons, and it's going to force a recall from Virium.
Solid choice. He's going to also spot out this Archon's probe that's been sitting at the Zelnega Watchtower for God knows how long. A couple of observers also getting picked off, but I mean, now we end up seeing Lucky. He's saying, you know what? Time to push across the map. I'm not going to let you have those expansions anymore, man. This game is going to come to an end because you do not have much of an answer to this Void Ray army.
And he does manage to sneak his Archons right through the absolute worst choke ever as the Void Rays engage their prismatic alignment. And the Tempest trying their darndest to do damage, but they're actually targeting the Void Rays, which is not the best use, but Void Rays doing an absolute ridiculous amount of damage to the army of Virium.
And there just was no splash damage there for Virium. I mean, the Archons were soaking up the Archon hits. And that's not what you wanted to have happen for Virium. Virium needed some sort of response, and he did not have one. GG gets called, and it looks like Team Ascension's Lucky securing the 4-3 victory in the ace match.
Wow, I definitely wouldn't have predicted that. I mean, you know, thinking about, going back to your question about, you know, unit choices when you go into the late game PvP, I really like what Lucky was thinking with those Void Rays. I mean, Virium kind of had the right idea there at the end. As soon as you could tell, as soon as he saw, I'm just going to click here and see, it's like 25 Void Rays, like, storm, insta-storm went down, you could see it.
It was
and
ridiculous.
It was a little too late at that point, but yeah, the Void Rays definitely easily, almost just like really, really easily sealed that up for Lucky.
Exactly, and you know, it was nice to see things like Dark Templars and stuff. I say this as a Dark Templar myself, apparently now. Like coming out in all kinds of different units. The only units that we didn't really see were that I actually think would have been cool and useful to see was the Mothership itself. Because the Mothership itself also adds that added benefit of, you know, giving extra cloaking and everything. If you snipe off your opponent's observers, that can actually cause a lot of trouble. Because now you suddenly have this big old army that's cloaked. You soak up those Tempest shots for a little bit longer. So there's like a couple extra units that maybe they could have gone for. But honestly, the Void Rays were the absolute perfect choice. That was the game ender in that almost seemingly stalemate situation.
Absolutely. And then, so big congratulations to Team Ascension and a really clutch win over Seed. I mean, Seed was sitting pretty coming into this, and, they're still, honestly, both of these teams are sitting very well in the standings, easily making it into the playoffs. But like I said, that number 1 and 2 spots are a coveted place, as you do get a bye through the first 2 rounds. So if you want to see the standings, you can go to SC2CTL.com. It looks like we